that have napping pods. I mean, they're the usual suspects, the Zappos and Googles of the world.
Hmm.
And I'm actually not sure how widely used they are, but they exist. There are actually for-profit enterprises out there so for instance, in New York City, where you can go in and actually pay to take a nap. It seems a little bit extreme, but you make a really, really good point. That a lot of people don't have full control over their day, and so for them, doing the right work at the right time or taking a break, they have to work the margins of it. So, I think that I'm not going to say everybody listening on this should nap every day. I don't believe that. And I'm not sure the entrepreneurs in the audience should establish nap pods in their own operations. What I would suggest as a beginning is to start treating breaks seriously. We have, especially in the United States, no matter where our ancestors were from, somehow in the United States, all of us have absorbed this very puritanical view of work, where it's about denial and about powering through, and that if you suffer and power through, that's how you're going to get more work done, and that's also morally virtuous. And the research doesn't say that. The research shows in so many realms of performance, whether it's violinists, whether it is athletes, whether it's physicians, whatever the realm of performance, that breaks improve our performance, that breaks are part of performance. And so for me, for the entrepreneurs there, I think what you can do is you can model that for your employees. And if you're an employee listening to this, steal away some kind of a break. You don't have to go crazy here, because we know a lot more about what kinds of breaks are most restorative. We know, for instance, that moving is better than being stationary. And I think a lot of people have absorbed that message. We know that outside is better than inside. There's some incredible research on the restorative effects of nature. We know, and I found this quite interesting as someone who's more introverted than extroverted, is social is better than solo. That breaks with other people are more restorative than breaks on our own. And the other thing that I think is really urgent now, in a world where we're carrying mini computers around, in our pocket as a mini computer connected to everyone else on the planet, is that fully detached breaks are better than semi-detached breaks. So you're better off during your break not talking about work, and certainly not sticking your nose in your Instagram feed. And so if you're an individual out there, and hey, you're not going to be able to take a nap at work, what I would suggest is, each afternoon, schedule a 15-minute walk outside with one of your colleagues who you like, leaving your phone behind, talking about something other than work. That's a small step, and it actually will make a huge, huge difference.
And now, as a business owner or as a manager of a team, how can you not just encourage breaks, but how can you also accommodate for this, peak, trough, and recovery? How do you maybe change the way that you run meetings? Or how do you communicate to your employees that in order to be the most efficient versions of themselves, they really need to take this into consideration? What advice would you give?
Okay, but that's great. I love the way you actually even frame that question. How can people become the most efficient versions of themselves? I wish I had said that. I don't say that in the book. I'm going to say it now, but because that's exactly the way to think about it. There isn't a single remedy, a single method for each person. What we know is that in broad groupings, we have people, the people who are morning people who get up early and go to sleep early, people who are in the intermediate. They tend to go peak trough recovery. People who are night owls, they have their peak much later in the day. But even within those categories, people have to observe their own behavior, and bosses need to give them the freedom to say, well, okay, what is the best time for you to start your work? What is the best time for you to take a break? Let people observe their own behaviors and make those kinds of decisions. Now, on the subject of meetings, you are so right. And this is, if there's one mild crusade that I have right now in my life, it is exactly this, which is that when we schedule meetings in organizations, and organizations have a huge number of meetings. It's incredible how much time people spend in meetings. But when we schedule meetings, we use only one criterion when we schedule those meetings, and that criterion is availability. Availability. We don't say, hey, what kind of work is this? Is this work where people need to be vigilant and heads down and analytical? Is this purely administrative? Or are we talking about our travel voucher policy? Is this a meeting where we need people to be brainstorming and iterative and creative? We don't say who's going to be at this meeting. People who are larks, morning people who are owls, evening people who are in the middle. We don't think about any of those questions. Instead, we say, is Fred available, and is Susan available, and is conference room 6L available?
Yeah.
And so if managers start being intentional about when they schedule meetings, that can make a huge difference. And I hear, this is anecdotal, so I'm moving from the science to an anecdote here. But over the last few months, I've heard from so many individuals saying things like, man, it's like, yeah, I am better doing my heads down work in the morning. Like, I'm a copywriter, I'm an analyst, and if I have just like 2 hours of uninterrupted time to do that kind of work, I can get a lot done. But my boss makes me go to an 8:30 staff meeting, then she makes me go to a 9:15 meeting about this, then I have to go to a 10:30 meeting about that, and I don't get my heads down time because my boss is dragging me into meetings.
And, it's interesting too, because if you're looking at proof points, that's an anecdotal thing. But in your book, you mentioned the earnings calls, right? And that's a proof. Yeah, I would love to hear more about that.
Oh, but that's just one of many. I mean,
Sure.
We haven't even talked about the evidence on like the differences in time of day is pretty amazing. But that's one of my favorite studies, and it's a study done out of NYU. And it uses a piece of software that is basically a giant text analyzer. So you can throw text into this program. It's called the LIWC, L-I-W-C, Linguistic Inquiry Word Count. And it can analyze a bunch of different things. But among the things it can analyze is, do the words in this text convey a positive sentiment, a negative sentiment, or a neutral sentiment? So it's a way to sort of assess the mood of a text. And so these researchers at NYU looked at the transcripts of earnings calls of, I think it was 26,000 earnings calls transcripts.
Wow.
26,000. Okay, that's a lot. I mean, that's torture to think about reading through those things. And they put them into this program and they said, does emotion of these calls, based on the analysis of the words that were used, does it change over the course of a day? And they said, oh my gosh, it does.